John Lee joins me now. John, you emailed me to say that there's something going on, and I know that I, like you, would expect that people would initially say, oh, this is all about NIMBY. You don't want something in your backyard. But are they really planning to install a drug detox facility right next to an elementary school? And tell me the where and when of this.
Hey, Lars, thanks for taking my call, and you're exactly right. This story involves an elementary school, a former bed and breakfast, and then a senior living facility that closed down, and a drug detox center that wanted to install operation right next to that elementary school. And last fall, a group of concerned parents heard about this, started asking questions. The city code, City of Camas, does not have specific language allowing or even addressing a drug detox facility. So inquiries were made, and the city staff correctly said that this must go through what they call a Type 4 process to amend the city code. And that process would involve going to the Planning Commission and ultimately the City Council, and 2 months later they reversed course and set a totally different path that allowed the elected representatives of the people to not have a say-so, and there's many more details to follow.
Well, because, John, what you just described, the reason they built the system, correct me if I'm wrong, like this, to say if there isn't a specific kind of zoning that allows a drug detox center in that location, then it has to go to a public hearing. People get a chance to come in and say, this is a bad idea to put it in this particular location, or they think it's a good idea. And then at the end of that, you have a public process where a decision is made. The detox center might still be put there, but at least the people involved or the people affected, like people with kids in that elementary school, would get a chance to sound off. And there are plenty of places in most cities where you could cite a detox center in either a commercial area. The businesses might not be crazy about it, but again, if they get a chance to have their say said, or even a light industrial area where at night you don't have the problem of having little kids right next to this detox center. Because like it or not, John, I always anticipate if you have a drug detox center, since you know there are drug addicts who are going to that center, and since some of them do fall off the wagon, if you're selling narcotics, if you're trafficking in them, that might not be the worst place in the world to try to sell your wares. Is that what you're thinking, or is there some other issue that you can imagine?
Well, you nailed it. The core issue here is a flawed process where the city staff did an about-face in setting it on its path for approval. Even more recently, there are two huge issues that have popped up. The citizens did a public records request, and they were provided emails and communications, but it contains a 7-week gap where the information provided has no emails, no communication, no documentation, and then at the end of the 7 weeks, suddenly the staff reverses course. What happened? Did the city attorney, did the city manager, did the mayor suddenly say, no, you will fast-track this on a different path? We really don't know, and there's no documentation.
Sounds like Rosemary Woods may be working at the city. Rosemary Woods is the lady who managed the 13-minute gap in the audio recording inside the White House during Nixon. But how in the world do they say, here are all the emails, and they leave a 7-week hole in the middle of the emails, just where you would expect to find the info you need?
Exactly right, and unbelievably, today, the pro bono attorney for this group of concerned citizens is attempting to serve the city of Camas and its pro bono, or its mayor pro tem and the city administrator. And what we're hearing is that these people are trying not to be available for legal service to file an appeal on this whole process. Ultimately, of course, they just want the appropriate communication and the light of day shown on what did or didn't happen for the approval on this, and hopefully to have a proper process unfold.
Well, is there a chance to hold up? Because, John, you're not the first person to send me an email about things like this. I mean, there are a bunch of communities around the state where they're having drug facilities dropped in, mental health facilities dropped in, and we all understand the need for it. But there's a need, and then there's the appropriate place to put it. And we're constantly being lectured by the folks in charge. Well, we have to have zoning because, zoning protects people. We put residential over here and commercial over there, and industrial down the road, and they're always telling us how zoning is supposed to take care of all those problems. Okay, well, why not use it in this case? Allow a public hearing, go through the process, let everybody be heard, and then do you think the city council was afraid that if they had a public hearing, what they'd hear was overwhelmingly negative, commentary on it and reasons not to put it there, and then they'd have to vote it down? So instead they said, let's just not have the process at all. We'll just go ahead and let it fly through.
Well, and that's spot on, except in this instance, it appears the city council got blindsided because citizens have been calling in during their citizens communication comments for months saying, please don't do this. And in early May, one of the city councilors says to the staff, why are we constantly being blindsided by this? Your job as the staff is to tee this up so that we know what's going on so that we can represent the people. What's going on here? Why are we getting blindsided? And so there's a huge issue of who's in control, who's not, who's serving the people.
No.
What's happening?
John, I'm talking to John Lee, who's very involved in politics, and you've run before, but you're involved in the way that I always encourage people to do. Get involved in these things, bring them to public light, encourage people to comment. I mean, all the things you'd expect in a representative form of government. Do you suspect that the city staff is actually driving this process, and that means the mayor and the city council, like so many do, simply listen to the staff and do what they're told? Because then what's the point of having elected representatives in the form of city and county commissioners and state representatives if they don't actually make their own decisions, but they leave it up to their staff?
Boy, and that gets to the heart of the question, Lars. We know that low-level staffers originally said, no, you must go through a process that includes the planning commission and ultimately the city council, and then 2 months later, there's a reversal. Does that mean the senior managers in the city said, nope, we're doing something else? Does it mean the city attorney demanded a different path? Does it mean the city administrator demanded? We don't know, and that's part of what these citizens want to uncover.
John, you know what it sounds like to me? It sounds like little old Camas, Washington. It is a small town. It's only, how many people in the town, in the whole town? 10,000?
25,000.
25. Okay, so it's a medium-sized town. It sounds like they're big enough to have their own deep state.
Yeah, that's what we're finding out. And the sense of this was that we're the little city that almost set a national record where 90% of the people voted against a pool bond a year and a half ago.
I got to go now. John Lee from Camas, you got the Lars Larson Show.